Get ready because what's coming next isn't gossip. It's not some wild rumor, and it's definitely not internet noise. This right here is where the whole story cracks wide open. When Charleston White finally spoke, he didn't yell or throw shade. He exposed everything. The silence people thought meant loyalty. Turns out it was the loudest confession of all. I watched her documentary before she ever became big. I think I seen on PBS on Channel 13. You could tell she was a rough, she had anger problems. She was not ladylike. She was __ boy tomboy. No. And she __ She went through the process and corrected what needed to be corrected to represent what a champ is. She ain't no Lee. None of our new youth are what our old stars used to be. They got their own mind. They got their own identity. So are no man, I'm no homie. They picking on Claressa and can't nobody whoop her. So for years everyone believed the picture-perfect story. A champion who could do no wrong. A power couple everyone envy. A love story built on fame, money, and non-stop applause. But Charleston came through calm and sharp, dropping the question no one had. The guts to ask. What if it was never about love at all? What if it was a setup from the start, a move for power, a play for clout, a brand deal dressed up as romance? What if the image mattered way more than the truth? And here's the wild part. Charleston didn't throw insults, didn't go off in anger, didn't chase attention. He just let the truth speak for itself. He didn't just talk. He did something way more dangerous. He connected the dots that everyone else ignored. He reminded folks that Claressa's shields didn't come from fame and polish. She came from grit, pain, and pure fire. She was raw, unfiltered, and real. But over time, she wasn't just shaped into a champion. She was turned into a brand. A brand too clean for chaos, too expensive for questions, too protected to ever look vulnerable. And that's where things start to get real dark. While the camera stayed zoomed in on the boxing belts and bright lights, something powerful was moving behind the curtain. Money, image control, and quiet manipulation. Right there beside her wasn't just a partner. It was someone guarding the gates. That silence, it wasn't innocent. It was part of the plan. Charleston White didn't have to throw blame or call names. He did something colder. He let the pattern do the talking. He let the silence tell the truth. And suddenly that so-called power couple didn't look like love anymore. It looked like a deal, a partnership dressed up as passion. Because when love is real, it doesn't need all that silence. And it sure doesn't feel like some business deal with an expiration date. After this moment, everything about Claressa Shields and Papoose started to look completely different. What made this whole situation so chilling wasn't how loud Charleston White spoke. It was how calm he was. Every word hit with precision, like he wasn't trying to convince anyone, just reminding the world of what they'd been pretending not to see. This wasn't a rant. It was a wake-up call. He flipped the whole narrative on its head. And once that shift happened, the image surrounding Charleston White, Claressa Shields, and Papoose began to crumble piece by piece. Charleston never came for Claressa's skills. He respected her game. What he did was challenge the system built around her. That machine that kept her protected and untouchable. So Claressa Shield wants to have babies with Papoose while he's still married to women. They going to look like African kids. Ugandan babies. Yeah. They ain't going to know if them babies Nigerian, Jamaican, or Haitian. But they going to have some pretty chocolatey skin. Don't know if their hair going to be too straight or wavy. They may have African hair. But they sure gonna be __ kids. They going to be some smart kids that know how to fight. He didn't question her greatness. He questioned how carefully it was being guarded. Because to him, the real danger in today's celebrity world isn't losing. It's being so protected that you never have to face the truth. Immunity is the new illusion. And Charleston just tore the curtain right off it. When someone becomes so important to a story that even questioning them feels off limits, that's when the real control starts. Charleston White pointed out something most fans totally missed. Claressa's rise wasn't just about talent, grind, and power. It was about polish, image cleanup, and narrative control. Not because she couldn't handle success, but because the brand built around her couldn't afford even a hint of chaos. The world saw dominance, strength, and spotlight moments. But behind the scenes, everything was wrapped in careful planning. Fights were picked with precision, risks managed in silence, and her public image was crafted to look raw and real, while every move was calculated. That's the kind of control that doesn't shout, it whispers. Then Charleston shifted the lens away from the boxing ring and towards the edges. The people in the shadows shaping access, influence, and silence itself. And that's where Papoose steps in. Not as the romantic partner everyone thought, but as the steady hand keeping the public story smooth. He wasn't loud, wasn't confrontational, just there, always calm, always present, always watching. Charleston never said Papoose was controlling Claressa. He didn't need to. The picture he painted said enough without a single accusation. Charleston didn't come out swinging. He said something way more subtle, but way more dangerous. He painted a picture where protection and dependence start to mix until they are almost the same thing. Where the person shielding you from criticism slowly becomes the filter that decides what you even get to hear. In that kind of setup, silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Silence turns into policy. And that's when a relationship stops looking like love and starts looking like an alliance. Charleston broke it down smooth. This wasn't about feelings. It was about function. Claressa needed stability, respect, and a shield from the chaos that comes with fame. Papoose needed a fresh spark, some relevance, and a seat close to power. Together, they didn't just look powerful, they looked untouchable. In a world where image rules everything, safety isn't comfort. It's currency. And that's when Remy Maule's name slid back into the mix. Not with noise, but with impact. Charleston pointed out her absence like it meant something. He didn't call it coincidence, he called it conflict. In his eyes, Remy Maule was never someone who could be quietly managed. She spoke her mind. She clapped back and she never played along with controlled narratives. She wasn't built for silence. And that made her the biggest wild card in the whole story. And when powerful systems can't control a variable, they don't argue with it, they erase it. Charleston. White didn't throw accusations or claim conspiracies. He broke down the pattern. He showed how certain voices get boosted while others slowly fade into the background. How stories shift not because the truth changes, but because what's useful changes. In that setup, Claressa wasn't just a fighter. She became an asset, a symbol, a protected image that had to stay spotless no matter the cost. Then, right in the middle of it all, Charleston tackled the question everyone online kept asking. Why doesn't Papoose ever speak out? Why doesn't he defend himself harder? Why has no ex ever come out and blasted him first? And that's when Charleston dropped the line that flipped the whole narrative on its head. He said that Papoose's silence wasn't about guilt or innocence. It was about discipline. Real discipline. Charleston explained that people often confuse discipline with morality. Just because someone doesn't react publicly, everyone assumes there's nothing to react to. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it means they've mastered control better than anyone else in the room. Yeah, that __ Papoose. And this why I say that you ain't never heard no hoe come out and say nothing bad about him for even when this hoe was doing wrong. He wasn't running to the internet bashing him. And he don't speak much. He's a man of silence. So that mean his words are important to him. I done seen him get with 2 women. It seemed like, he brought the best out of both women. Yeah, I don't know too many __ that go hold their girl down when they go to jail. That silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. And that's what made it so powerful. From that point on, the whole vibe turned darker. Charleston White started digging into what really happens when careers hit their peak. But the person behind the fame stops evolving. When the spotlight starts to dim and being close to power becomes the quickest ticket back into relevance. He never said Papoose used Claressa. He just made it clear that opportunity always finds the people ready to take it. When 2 needs line up, security on one side, access on the other. People like to call it love because it sounds sweeter than strategy. Charleston laid it out clean. Claressa's world wasn't just about boxing anymore. It had shifted into image control, brand safety, and protection mode. Less risk, more reputation management. And in that kind of setup, anyone daring to question the direction wasn't just disagreeing. They were threatening the entire system. And that's where things start to feel more like business than connection. Then Charleston turned his focus to the industry itself. He called out how the same media voices that scream empowerment suddenly go quiet when real scrutiny shows up. He asked why so many outlets keep recycling the same safe, polished stories. According to him, when silence gets that loud, it's not neutrality, it's cooperation. And that's the part most people don't want to admit. The more Charleston White spoke, the clearer everything became. Control doesn't storm in, it slides in quietly. It shows up dressed as loyalty, protection, even love. Until one day, the person at the center can't tell where their freedom ends. And the system begins. That's when things get dangerous. Then Charleston dropped one of his toughest truths yet. He talked about the toll of physical damage. Fight after fight, injury after injury. Each bruise, each hit doesn't just hurt the body, it creates vulnerability. And that's when dependence starts to look like profit. When the need for safety and stability outweighs the craving for independence, and suddenly the people around you aren't there to lift you up. They're there because you can't picture life without them. That's not power. That's quiet control. But Charleston didn't paint anyone as a villain. He talked about incentives, the hidden motives that shape behavior when fame and money get involved. Then he zoomed out big time. This wasn't just about Claressa Shields or Papoose or even Remy Ma. It was about how modern relationships, especially public ones, are built like business deals. Who brings the value? Who provides protection? Who controls the access? Who carries the risk? And who gets swapped out when the balance shifts? Charleston wrapped up this part of his breakdown by flipping the whole story on its head. He said this wasn't some love story gone wrong. It was a business setup doing exactly what it was built to do until the contract quietly ran its course. When a relationship runs on usefulness instead of trust, the downfall doesn't come with drama. It comes like clockwork. It's not heartbreak, it's procedure. And the most chilling part, the truth doesn't blow up. It leaks slowly, quietly, piece by piece. Once that leak starts, no amount of PR, rebranding, or silence can seal it back up. And that's what made this part of Charleston's take hit so deep. It wasn't about what he said. It was about how everything suddenly clicked. By this point, the whole discussion had moved beyond feelings and straight into mechanics. It wasn't just about who Claressa Shields, Papoose, or even Remy Ma were. It was about how the system itself works when power, money, and image all collide. Charleston didn't paint the relationship as wild or chaotic. He called it efficient. And in his view, efficiency isn't romantic. It's calculated. It's structured. It's built to minimize risk and squeeze out maximum reward. That's when the connection between Claressa Shields and Papoose stopped feeling emotional and started looking like a carefully managed operation. Charleston White printed out something quiet, but absolutely damning. When one partner controls the media, the narrative, and even the flow of criticism, they're not just shaping perception, they are shaping reality. Not through force, but through filtration. They decide what gets seen, what gets twisted, and what never reaches the public at all. And the wildest part, from the outside, it still looks like love and loyalty. He broke it down further, saying that Claressa's entire world had become curated. Fewer raw moments, fewer uncomfortable questions, and way more protection that looks sweet on the surface, but was really control dressed as care. In that kind of setup, love doesn't disappear. It just gets rebranded. It turns into leverage, stability, insurance, emotional currency. She also makes more money than him, similar to Remy M. So would you consider him a gold digger? No, a player ain't never been a gold digger. That nigga's a player, __. That smooth player, __. Yeah. No, man. No, you always supposed to play for the bank. My grandmama told me if a woman really like you, it ain't nothing she won't do for you. Well, grandmama, how you know if she really like you? She'll give you her money. Then Charleston switched gears to talk about the money side, not greed, but structure. He pointed out how whenever one partner earns way more than the other, the public jumped straight to labels. Gold digger, user, opportunist. But Charleston shut that narrative down, not to defend anyone, but to clear the air. He said this wasn't about taking money. It was about access to it. About being in a space where you move like the wealth is shared even when behind the scenes it's not really yours. That illusion of equality, that's where the power truly hides. That distinction right there matters a lot. It changes the whole focus from talk about taking to talk about alignment. And that's exactly what Charleston White was getting at. Alignment, he said, is the real foundation of modern power relationships. You don't need to own everything when you already influence how everything moves. You don't need official authority when you've got proximity to it. That's where the quiet control lives. Then Charleston took a breath and hit the crowd with the question everyone keeps asking, but nobody really wants the truth to. What happens when generosity isn't manipulation, it's validation? That line didn't land soft at all. It cut deep. He wasn't saying money buys love. He was saying love often shows itself through access. When someone can tap into your resources freely without tension or resistance, that speaks volumes about the power dynamic in play, whether people want to face it or not. After that, Charleston zoomed out again and went bigger. He said people keep obsessing over who makes more money, who's the breadwinner, who's the supporter, and completely miss the real issue. It's not about income. It's about control. Who gets to shape the story? Who decides when to stay silent? Who calls the shots on when to speak and when to vanish? That's where the real power hides, in the unseen choices that steer the whole narrative. In that setup, silence turns into straight-up currency. Charleston White broke it down smooth. Silence isn't weakness, it's a strategy. The loud ones burn bridges fast, but the quiet ones, they own the room. And in a world that runs on spectacle, the person who never reacts becomes the most untouchable of all. Because let's be real, you can't attack what never fights back. That's when Remy Ma stepped back into the picture. But not from emotion, from structure. Charleston painted her as the wild card in the system, the one who couldn't be predicted or polished. She spoke her truth whenever she wanted. No filter, no PR spin. She didn't hide conflict or smooth over tension just to look clean for the cameras. And in a world obsessed with keeping brands spotless, that kind of unpredictability is a major threat. So when the focus drifted away from her, Charleston said it wasn't about heartbreak. It was about risk control, removing volatility to keep the machine running smooth. The industry didn't just allow that shift, it cashed in on it. Clean stories sell faster. Controlled relationships are easier to protect. And anytime a critic dares to question the setup, they get labeled bitter, jealous, or hearten. That's how silence stays powerful and how truth keeps getting buried under perfect optics. That kind of labeling doesn't even need to be planned. It happens automatically. It's built into the culture. And the most chilling part of Charleston's breakdown came when he talked about how long setups like this can actually last. He said relationships built on usefulness don't crash in scandal. They fade out quietly. When the balance shifts, when the protection stops being as effective, when the asset doesn't need the same gatekeeper anymore, that's when silence loses its power and the leaks start. And leaks don't ask for permission, they just happen. Charleston explained that truth doesn't show up like an explosion. It slips in piece by piece. It comes through contradictions, small cracks in the story, and little moments where the public image stops matching the behavior, where loyalty starts feeling less like love and more like a job description. That's when the truth starts creeping out. Slow but unstoppable. Then he tied it all back to the physical cost. The endless fights, the repeated injuries, the exhausting recoveries. It all adds up. Charleston said that kind of physical wear and tear makes emotional dependence stronger. And that's where control becomes the most profitable. Not because someone's evil, but because it happens naturally. When a person's tired, hurting, and constantly under the spotlight, they stop questioning the setup that promises to keep them safe. And that's exactly how these systems survive, by keeping the exhausted too comfortable to fight back. Charleston White wrapped up this part of his talk by flipping the whole idea of marriage on his head. He didn't speak out of bitterness. He spoke out of realism. He said, marriage isn't just romance, it's a contract, not in a cold way, but in a practical one. He argued that most relationships fall apart because people treat marriage like it's all about emotion instead of structure, like it's about feelings instead of foundation. And once those feelings shift, the whole thing collapses. In Charleston's view, when a relationship is built like a business, it can survive storms. But when it's built like a show, it falls apart the moment the audience changes. And that's the real sting in this story. Because if this was never truly about love, if it was all about alignment, then the silence wasn't betrayal at all. It was policy. And policies don't apologize. They just expire when they stop being useful. Charleston didn't stand on a soapbox or tell people what to believe. He didn't push conclusions. He just laid out the structure, the mechanics, and let the truth breathe on its own. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. By the time he reached this point in his breakdown, the damage was already done. Not because he exposed a scandal, but because he forced everyone to confront what they'd been trying so hard to ignore. By the end, the story had outgrown Claressa Shields, Papoose, and Remy Ma as individuals. It wasn't just about them anymore. It had become something way bigger. A pattern, a system, a familiar cycle that people only recognize once it's already too late. Charleston White didn't come out saying this relationship was doomed. He said something much colder. He hinted that maybe it was never meant to last, that it had a purpose, a lifespan, and a quiet exit plan built right into it from the start. And once you start looking at it through that lens, every sweet romantic moment suddenly feels different, like a move, not a memory. Charleston talked about how most modern celebrity relationships aren't designed to hold emotion. They are designed to handle pressure. They are not built for truth. They are built for image, for headlines, for managing the backlash that comes with fame. In that world, authenticity turns into a liability, and vulnerability becomes a dangerous gamble. So people trade real connection for controlled silence because silence is the safest currency anyone can hold. That's where Charleston's tone shifted almost clinical. He broke it down like a blueprint. Public couples aren't judged by their love anymore. They are measured by their utility. Who steadies the brand? Who calms the chaos? Who takes the hits without creating new ones? And that's when the illusion of love starts to look a lot like strategy wrapped in spotlight. Once those kinds of questions start replacing real affection, Charleston White said the relationship's already running like a contract. Even if no paper's ever signed, that's when the expiration dates quietly sneaks into the picture. He explained that setups like this don't explode in public, they fade out in private. No dramatic breakup post, no messy scandal, just more distance, fewer appearances, and silence that sounds polite but feels permanent. It's the same way a company quietly stops defending a product once it stops making profit. What makes it so unsettling, Charleston said, is how normal that process feels. The public loves to mistake longevity for loyalty. But in controlled environments, longevity don't mean love. It means efficiency. It means the arrangement is still serving its purpose. Once that purpose dries up, the protection fades. The silence starts to crack, and suddenly what used to feel untouchable becomes open to doubt and questions. Charleston didn't sit there predicting doom. He laid out inevitability. Because when a relationship is built on alignment instead of truth, it can't handle change. If the money shifts, if the fame dips, if the narrative takes a turn, the bond doesn't bend. It just quietly dissolves. No apologies, no fireworks, just clean separation dressed as calm maturity. Then he hit the audience with a line that reframed everything he'd said before. He argued that most people don't even realize they're in transactional relationships because transactions don't always look like trades. Sometimes they look like protection, like someone shielding you from heat or managing your critics or keeping your image spotless while you focus on the spotlight. It's not chaos, it's choreography, and that's what makes it so hard to see until it's already over. But every transaction comes with a cost. And in this story, Charleston White said the price was autonomy. Claressa Shields didn't lose her independence in one big moment. It slipped away little by little. It happened through good intentions, through filtered decisions made for her, through a wall of protection that silenced criticism before she even heard it. Anyone who questioned the setup got labeled jealous, bitter, or irrelevant. So, their voices disappeared before they could even reach her. And the scariest part, that kind of control doesn't feel like control. It feels like safety. Charleston circled back to something he'd said before. The physical cost, those repeated fights, the constant pain, the recovery cycles. It all wears you down. Pain changes how you think. Fatigue dulls your resistance. And after a while, dependence doesn't feel forced. It feels reasonable, even comforting. Especially when someone nearby is always there ready to handle the world for you. That's when Charleston's words stopped sounding like gossip and started sounding like a warning. He said, "This isn't just about boxing or fame. It's the same cycle playing out across industries in music and sports and politics. Anywhere image gets treated like truth. Anywhere silence is rewarded and questioning the system gets framed as betrayal." And he didn't let the audience off the hook either. Charleston turned the mirror on the fans. He said, "We're part of the problem, too. Every time people cheer louder instead of asking questions, every time they defend the brand instead of the person, they help keep the system alive. Because applause doesn't just celebrate, it also silences." Charleston White pointed out how these days, even asking questions gets treated like hate instead of curiosity. He said, "Silence isn't always forced from the top. It's also reinforced from the bottom. Fans, followers, and the public all play a part, turning curiosity into criticism until no one dares to question the story anymore." Then the conversation shifted toward legacy. What happens when the lights fade and the brand doesn't need defending anymore? Charleston said, "The hardest truths don't hit during the peak. They show up after. After the applause fades, after the spotlight moves on, after the protection disappears, that's when people finally start asking the questions they were told not to before. But by then, the answers don't hurt as much as the regret. He brought it full circle by returning to the idea of marriage, not as romance, but as infrastructure, as accountability, as shared responsibility. Charleston argued that when love is treated like pure emotion, it collapses under pressure. But when it's treated like a partnership built on duty and planning, it can actually endure. And the wildest irony, he said, is that so many people reject marriage as a contract while unknowingly stepping into relationships that function exactly like one, just without the paperwork, without transparency, and without the honesty to admit it. That's what makes this story ST. It's not about villains or victims. If this was never love but alignment, then no one necessarily did anything wrong. They just played their roles, followed the incentives, protected the image, and kept silent. Until silence stopped working. Charleston didn't end his breakdown with anger. He ended it with clarity. He didn't predict explosions or scandals. He reminded everyone that systems don't collapse from exposure. They collapse when the silence holding them together finally runs out. Charleston White said something that hit like a cold truth. Systems don't collapse from scandal. They collapse from irrelevance. When the cost of keeping up the illusion outweighs the benefits, that's when everything starts to quietly fall apart. And when that moment comes, the truth doesn't need a stage or a microphone. It just leaks. It seeps and whispers and side comments and things that no longer add up, because silence only holds power while people still believe it means something else. That's when this story stops feeling entertaining and starts feeling uncomfortable. Because once the noise fades, once the clip stops circulating, once everyone stops defending their side, what's left behind isn't a hero or a villain. It's a pattern, a familiar one. The kind that looks shiny and perfect from far away, but feels empty the closer you get. What once looked like loyalty now feels like duty. What once felt like protection now looks like control. And that thing everyone swore was love, it suddenly feels like a transaction that finally ran out of value. Charleston challenged the audience right there. He said, "This is the moment you got to decide whether silence still sounds noble or whether it's starting to sound performed. 'Cause silence doesn't just protect people. It protects systems. It shields the deals, the arrangements, the curated narratives that only survive as long as no one asked the wrong question at the wrong time. And when those questions finally slip through the cracks, everything built on image starts to shake. There's a reason this story never ended cleanly. A reason the answers came in fragments instead of open confessions. There's a reason no one wants to speak too soon or too loud. Because once the illusion breaks, you can't patch it up again without showing exactly what it was made of. And that's the moment when image turns back into truth. And truth refuses to stay quiet anymore. Power, dependence, the fear of fading out, the fear of losing access, the fear of losing control. Charleston White said that kind of fear screams louder than any accusation ever could. And what makes this whole story so tragic isn't the fallout. It's realizing the warning signs were always there, sitting in plain sight. The quiet exits, the filtered truths, the voices that didn't disappear by accident. They were pushed out long before anyone noticed. Charleston broke it down raw. Betrayal doesn't always storm in with drama and yelling. Sometimes it walks in calm, polished, and smiling, dressed up as professionalism and strategy. So now the real question isn't who's right or wrong. It's who profited while everyone else stays silent. And even more importantly, who pays the price once the whole arrangement stops working. Because stories like this don't really end when people stop talking. They end when the truth no longer needs permission to speak. That's when the mask falls, the silence breaks, and the real story finally tells itself. If you made it this far, don't just scroll past. Hit that like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Tell us what you think about this wild breakdown. Do you believe Charleston White was exposing something real or just stirring the pot? Let's talk about it.